You're listening to MicrasCast, the podcast about all things Micras.
Well, that's really nerdy.
Nerdy or not, here we go. This is MicrasCast with your host, Ed. Intellectual, stimulating conversation.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to MicrasCast. I am your host, Ed Carrillo. Thank you for listening. So today, I have another episode of my Fireside Chats. Today we talk with Salome, the Kaiseress of Shireroth. Or, well, whatever's left of it, I guess. I have to warn you, this episode was recorded a while ago. I think it was back in September. We originally talked for a good, I think it was like almost 3 hours. And what you're about to hear here is only just a small part of that conversation. We had such a good time. I had a great time talking with Salome. We talked about Antica, Shireroth, Ransinar, Benacia. We talked about a lot of things. This episode takes a really deep dive into Antican history and culture, what caused Antica to split in two, and a bunch of other stuff. It's an incredibly deep dive in anything that's Antican. So I hope you enjoyed this interview with Salome. It was a good time. Thank you, Salome, for having come on to this show. And I hope you all enjoy. Take care. Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to the next installment of MicrasCast. Today's episode continues my fireside one-on-one chats. I have with me today the Kaiseress of Shireroth herself, Salome. Welcome, Salome. How are you?
I'm doing wonderfully. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. So great to have you. Thanks for coming on.
This is a very nice fireside.
All right, so we have some marshmallows. Do you do s'mores?
Who doesn't do s'mores?
Right. Well, I just have to ask. You never know who's like diabetic, right?
That is true. You do have to worry about that, especially with some of the aged statesmen in Shireroth and all these other places.
Yeah, the aged.
I wouldn't want my steward to have a diabetic, go into diabetic coma or something.
Oh yeah, that's it's not cool.
A stiff breeze could kill him. I love him. He's wonderful.
Oh, so yeah, I'm so happy to have you on. Basically, with these chats, I usually start by asking people how they found Micras, how they got started. Well, I think we started around the same time, right? Like Antica. So like I started in 2002. May of 2002 is when I first founded Madland, and I think that Antica was founded around that same time, if I'm not mistaken, right?
2003.
Okay. So it was a year later.
You've been around longer than even me.
Okay. Oh, I'm so old.
Old man. By like what, a year?
Yeah.
So how did I get it started? Oh no. This is where all the embarrassing things happen. I think it was in June 2003.
Mm-hmm.
That would have been the end of my second year of high school.
Okay.
And at that time, I was good friends with a fellow irredeemable nerd, and we had gym together.
Okay.
And we were talking about all sorts of random things, and it was like walking around the track because the school couldn't bother to have us do anything else. So we just walked around the track, and once we walked around the track a sufficient number of times to amuse the gym teacher, we'd go back in, and that was it.
Yeah.
So it was a great opportunity to just chit chat and walk very slowly. Because who wants to exert yourself at gym, right?
Of
Like,
course. No.
So, as part of these conversations, like we had all these like different ideas, and I had encountered something online. It was a website. I forget what the name of it was. It started with a C. I think it was Corvinia.
Yes.
I loved the weird little details of like the website bothered to go into details of like the uniforms of the different regiments and like the banners that they had and all these different like, and at the bottom of the page, every single page, it said that this was a work of fiction and was not meant to be reality. And I thought it was so charming. And this is one of the things that we talked about. And over the course of a particular day of gym class, we decided to make our own. We were going to make our own, and this was going to be like, I get to hold on to your hats. This is going to be a backdoor way of recruiting people into like a weird political movement that we had been like talking about.
Interesting. Okay. And what
basically our plan was to take over the world. And the problem is that in order to take over the world, you need followers. So our goal was we would take over the world using a micronation, because basically what we would do is we'd have a political structure. We would have different, ministerial and social positions and all sorts of things that we could give to our initial followers. And as the movement expands, you'd populate the lower and lower ranks, and that would be our way of taking over the world. At least this was sort of my motivation, because I was a very angsty teenager who just wanted to I wanted to impose my will upon the world, because the world was so messed up. Because after all, this was 2003.
Yeah.
2003 was not the best year. Though I would have to say that it was not the best year for people other than me. Like I think a number of people had this is the worst year of my life moments in 2003. But I was getting a feeling of this year sucks. Yeah. And I should just take over the world and make it correct. Who doesn't in high school?
Take over the world and unsuck the world.
Well, I don't know about that. I wouldn't put it that way. Take over the world and correct everything that's wrong with it. It's sort of that sort of totalitarian mindset of we will force you to be free, that kind of thing. We were going to do that. This is at least my motivation.
Yay, Patrick! We saved Bikini Bottom. A Bikini Bottom in ruins in the background.
Basically.
Interesting.
This was at least my personal motivation, and that personal motivation quickly disappeared because this was a lot more fun.
Yeah, of course.
And over the course of the next few weeks, so the rest of June, into the end of the year, the school year, we developed the structure that would be the dynarchy of Antica, because there were two of us. So it's not a monarchy, it's a dynarchy.
Okay.
Later on, we would find out that there are other more preferred terms for a system of two rulers, but we just sort of stuck with dynarchy because we liked to stick with our branding.
Yeah, well, and it's an original thought.
Well, not necessarily, because we had a lot of historical precedent. We looked at ancient Sparta, which had two lineages of kings that ruled side by side.
Okay.
You had like the Romans, who had paired consuls in control. There was precedent. So, but we didn't want to call ourselves consuls. We didn't want to call ourselves royalty. We wanted something a bit more modern.
Okay.
And so we ended up designing a fascist government. It was not even fascist. It was just like a junta. It was a military junta, because my friend, who became Delphi, he was the head of the army, and I became the head of the navy, because at the time I was very fascinated with ships.
Okay.
And
A stratocracy then, right?
yeah, that would probably be the better way of putting it, a stratocracy. And it was very, very rudimentary. And over time, we would sort of fill things in to make it less bonkers. But I do remember one of our first few interactions with other micronations. We did call ourselves fascist as a point of pride. Like we are fascist, but we're like the good ones because we're just here to put the trains on time.
Because I remember the old flag, the original flag. Okay, so like everyone knows the one that's like the top is white and the bottom is blue and it has the little red. I don't know what that symbol was.
It's like two L's.
And then the little dot in the middle.
Yeah.
Or like a period, or I don't remember if it was like a square or a circle.
It's a square. It's a rectangle.
Oh, okay.
It's all very angular.
But I remember the tricolor that like gave me some like Starship Trooper vibes and literally has the fasces on it, right? Like
the flag was, and I designed the flag. So I was quite proud of it. I designed the flag. It was green on top, white in the middle, and blue on the bottom, and that was to symbolize, control over land and sea.
Okay.
Because Delphi's favorite color was green, and my favorite color, I don't know if it still is blue, but I still really do like blue. Mm-hmm. At the time, we'll say it was blue. And then in the middle of the flag was an eagle. And the eagle had a shield in front of it, so it was a supporter of a coat of arms.
Yeah,
and the coat of arms had paired fasces.
Mm-hmm.
With on a black. It was white on black, so the white fasces on a black field, and in the middle was a vertical line with what is it called? It's like the idea was it was like the wall of a castle.
Okay, so like ramparts.
Like ramparts, and like I was reading up on heraldry, and this was a thing you could do. So I wanted to do it because it was supposed to symbolize strength.
Okay,
and the fasces is it. Well, here's the thing: the fasces, and this is like something that I've continued to use in Antica later on. The fasces as a good thing, because in ancient Rome, the fasces did not have this kind of authoritarian junta mindset that you have in the 20th century onward, thanks to Mussolini. It was in ancient Rome, it was basically a symbol of unity, because you can break one stick, but if you have a whole group of sticks tied together, you can't break them all.
Yeah.
So it was strength and unity, and the shield in general was about strength and fortitude, on top of an eagle, which is a symbol of imperial might.
Mm-hmm.
And the eagle in particular, it was a combination of the eagle from the flag of Romania. If you ever, for your Romanian fans, I took it from your eagle, but I didn't quite like the head. I didn't like the head of the Romanian eagle, so I replaced it with a different eagle.
Okay.
The Nazi eagle.
Oh, that one.
Yeah. Because fascism, but good.
But nice. We're the nice ones.
We're the nice ones. We're going to use military might to fix the world. What's the worst that could happen?
It's kind of those. Okay, so like you, we were talking earlier before we started recording about social media. And all of a sudden, I'm reminded of those like Twitter memes that you see a lot, where like Republicans defund the police, or like Republicans say one thing, and then Democrats just say the same thing, but they like add a gay flag and some like a couple of emojis.
Yes. With the police brutality, like Republicans, police brutality, Democrats, police brutality, pride flag.
Yeah.
Or with the clap emoji.
Yeah, the clap emoji. We need more women prison guards.
Brutality.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like that. It was It was it was that was the vibe we were intentionally going for. And
Oh man.
and we probably scared off a few people initially because we were leaning very heavily into the fascist vibe. Because you have to remember, this was 2003. Wikipedia was not as well sourced.
Yeah.
And so we were just like reading things online. I don't even know if was Google's like as good back then. I forget.
I don't know, but like I know that
2003
like
is like another world. Yeah. There was a lot less of awareness that we had because we were also in high school, and things seem a whole lot simpler. And there was just less information about why this is a bonkers and terrible idea. Why fascism is bad was probably a thing that we could have benefited from. It was kind of funny because the dynarchy of Antica persisted through the 2004 election and managed to survive all the way until summer of 2005 without any real issues, despite the fact that in real life, me and Delphi would get into like political arguments about American politics. But we were able to compartmentalize it because that's American politics.
Yeah.
And then we were very, very much united when it came to Antican politics.
Okay.
And in terms of Antican politics, the answer was always clear: Antica must prevail. So it's easy.
Mm-hmm.
And so any sort of disagreement was over what would make Antica more awesome. And so we were able to work out pretty well during those years, and we were able to recruit a number of people. And so by the end of 2000, like by mid 2005, we were a sizable population of like 20 people. We actually had like a proper legislature, and we were developing the culture and all sorts of things that like you would look at a micronation, at least of that time, and think this is on the up and up.
Yeah.
And then and then there was a break, and we were no longer in agreement about what would make Antica better, and that's how the dynarchy stopped being a dynarchy.
Okay.
Because it was the whole design, like the Constitution, which we actually used. It was actually designed like it wasn't designed to be
like a narrative device. It was like an actual thing.
Yeah, it was not. It was never meant to be a narrative device. Actually, in many ways, Antica was very anti-fiction. Any sort of culture we felt at the time had to be reflective of how we actually were. And so the Constitution was designed to work. And there was no metafiction. There was no it was never a narrative. We used the Constitution to resolve political disputes. And the Constitution had been designed intentionally so that if the two dynarchs were in agreement, everybody else didn't matter.
Okay.
Because we could override them. And then the problem is that we started disagreeing about the direction of things. And we passed a new constitution like the beginning of 2005, and spring 2005 going to summer, there was a lot of tumultuousness because we had this much larger population with more attitudes, and I was finding myself agreeing with a lot of like the bulk of the people in it.
Yeah.
And Delphi was like, no, we don't want to do that. And the revolution happened.
And that's when the dynarchy became the Republic of Antica, or?
Well, it split. The dynarchy continued to be the dynarchy because Delphi refused to accept that the bulk of the population no longer wanted to be carrying him around and obeying him. So there was a split, and the dynarchy continued for a bit with like a tiny portion of the population because almost everybody left. And that was the Republic. And for much of the rest of like Antica as a functioning micronation the revolution sort of became its culture. It was basically a slurry of all the real revolutions in modern, like, world history, just blended together. So there was French Revolution stuff, there was Chinese and Russian Revolution stuff, there was American Revolution. It was just all poured together and mixed around, and it was like the culture of the Republic of Antica was, we are revolutionary and we are radically democratic, and everything had to, and the system that we built in the Republic was first in reaction to the dynarchy, but it was also taking on a lot of the same mentality. This constitution has to work. This is how we actually are. Fiction is undesirable because we're real people. Which is funny because of the people that we were interacting with, because we were involved heavily in the politics with of Shireroth, with Babka, with all of these other micronations that were very fiction heavy. And it became kind of interesting in a sort of weird way, the way that we would have to constantly square the circle on that, because we basically, for narrative purposes, whenever we were interacting with Shireroth or Babka or somebody else for like rec wars and stuff, for recreational warfare, we'd have fictionalized versions of ourselves in the narrative, which made things very awkward sometimes.
I remember because during that span of time in the Dinarchy, Madland, which later became Alexandria, became part of Antica. And I remember that before that, just before Madland had joined, Korhal or Korhal, I don't know how it's pronounced. How do you say it?
Choral.
Okay, so like,
and I only know that because after they decided to leave us behind, because the original founder of the micronation came back, we basically poached a dying micronation and turned it into an Antican province. But the founder came back and was like, this is not how I want things to be. Choral is independent. And he sort of did like a reinvention of it. And he respelled it and made it more Latin style rather than like vaguely Middle Eastern.
Okay.
And the way he spelled it was Corral. So I'm assuming then that Choral was always pronounced that way.
Okay. Yeah.
I could be wrong, but
that'll be a fair assumption.
That's my assumption.
Yeah.
Because we had that brief period of time in like early 2005, like you're saying, where the Dynarchy of Antica upgraded into the Empire of Antica, or the Antican Empire, and we annexed Choral, we annexed Madland, we annexed Ariez.
Yes.
And this was sort of like the moment that Antica was supposed to explode with productivity, and we were going to take over the sector, and it was going to be all Antica.
Antica's manifest destiny.
Yes, and part of the time it was a joke, but sometimes it was like totally legitimate. Like we would talk about our next. And this is for years after, we'd talk about our next update for the MCS map, and we would somebody among us would just spontaneously color the whole map Antican blue and say this is our goal.
Man.
Yeah, it was quite something. It was just like Antica is going somewhere. Like that was like the vibe of especially late Dynarchy of Antica into the Republic of Antica. Like this place is going somewhere. This place is expanding. This is the future. Either through the Dynarchy's principle of fascism but good, or the Republic's principle of permanent revolution.
Yes.
That Antica was always destined for greatness. Didn't quite work out.
Well, it worked for a while.
It worked for a while because we were very passionate.
It worked for a while, and then like there was a time that because now that you remind me of the split, I don't remember which was the one that went on to join Shireroth, become a Shirerithian state.
That
The
was
first time, because
yeah,
there were
what
several
is it?
times, right?
There were several times, but it was, I think, because so the revolution was let me remember, August 31st, because we memorialize it every year. It was August 31st, coincidentally or not coincidentally, the beginning of the fall semester for college is about that time. And that's when these things came to a head, because it used Delphi and I used to be able to talk about stuff and work things over like in person, but we couldn't do that anymore because we both had gone to different universities.
Okay.
And things had come to a head, and it was like right as I was beginning my first year of college, things had come to a head, and that was the beginning of the revolution. By October, I think the Dynarchy had lost so many people that it was no longer able to maintain the constitutional structure, even as it was designed for emergency purposes. A replacement for me was appointed, and I think he became inactive. And a treaty was signed, the Treaty of Aquilaria, which is the capital of the Dynarchy of Antica, and it was ceded to the Imperial Republic of Shireroth as a duchy. So it became the Duchy of Antica. And the Dynarchy's fight became Shireroth's fight, and the Antican Republic became Shireroth's enemy as a result of this. So that was the bulk of our focus over the next few years, was being Shireroth's mildly unpredictable enemy, which was fun, because sometimes we would work with them on stuff, but there was always a degree of animosity because we were very different places. The Republic was aggressively egalitarian, aggressively democratic. Everybody has to vote. Everything has to be voted on. No flowery titles for anything. There was no nobility.
I remember
nothing.
when you guys used to call each other citizen.
Yeah, everyone was citizen.
Yeah.
The head of the country was the speaker of the assembly. And instead of, we even went as far as to not call our government positions minister or secretary, we called them officers. So instead of like a Ministry of the Interior, there was the Chief Administrative Officer, the COW. And we typically call it the COW, CAO.
The cow.
The COW.
Oh, that's very Natopian. That would go very well in Natopia.
But it was all part of this ethos of, we only have the government positions we need because we're real.
Yes.
We're operating, obviously we're functioning in a fictional setting, but we never allowed ourselves to get involved in the fiction of it. Like, we argued over pixels. We didn't argue over land.
Yeah.
We didn't have ceremonial positions. Every job had a function. Like, if you are the person who was appointed for a particular position or elected for a particular position, that was your job. You are doing that. And it was aggressively so. So we were like the anti-Shireroth for a couple of years. In every possible way. We were the because we were modernist, we were technological, every single way that you can think of Shireroth as, like feudal, magical, all these things. We were the exact opposite.
Yeah.
And we kind of we leaned into it very aggressively as we became more and more antagonistic with Shireroth.
After Madland left, God, I remember being so pissed because I'm like, they're saying that my brother is a papal.
Yeah, we didn't know what we didn't understand how, like, because we were paranoid. We were just like, Antica, for all of its greatness, was a very paranoid country to live in. Like, to quote, live in, as a micronationalist. It was a land of greatness and paranoia. Kind of like any sort of fascist dictatorship.
Yeah.
And so we were constantly like paranoid about people trying to break in, people trying to invent papals in order to. Do people know what papals are?
Well, I think so, because a lot of the people that were around that time are still around.
Yeah, but there are a lot of people that weren't.
Well, yeah, fair. Because like I remember, so Madland leaves Antica, becomes Alexandria, and then I get sick of Alexandria because I keep trying to revive this nation. It was kind of silly. So
I just named Madland at one point.
Yeah. So like I hand the place over to someone else who like turns it into the Islamic Republic of Sennar. And then I go
that.
Right, like, and then I go and I start San Martin with Troy Thompson.
Yep.
And with David Redstone. And I
Wasn't
remember
that supposed to be like communist Cuba or something?
Like I wanted it to be something like Chile mixed with Colombia, mixed with Puerto Rico.
Okay.
But Troy had these ideas where he wanted to be communist Cuba, but then I go, well, that already was tried. Baracao was around for a long time, and they even created its own
Whatever happened
Conland.
to Korolyov? Do you remember him?
I don't remember what happened.
I loved his avatar because it looked like somebody who was nerdy enough to actually take a picture of himself with a beret. It was great, and I kind of had like a grudging respect for it.
Yeah,
anyway,
Coralia. Coralia, I think Coralia was originally David Redstone who started that.
Okay.
It was like Grand Duke something. I forgot the name. Like Grand Duke Oz, was it? No, maybe I'm comparing it with someone else. I don't know. Or I'm confusing with someone else.
Anyway, San Martin.
But yes, and because I remember that era was where we spied on each other. Babka had Savak, Shireroth had Shine, Antica had their own spies.
The Antican military intelligence, AMI, because we're your friends.
Well, and you guys also had me, and you guys also had like what was it? I remember Delphi always talking about this tool called GoldenEye.
Oh, yes,
to like hack into the forums. And I remember that you guys hacked into San Martin and read all of our private shit.
Oh yeah, we like this is we were no joke.
Yeah. I remember being so pissed at the time. I was like, how could we like only use the password? We should have been using the masking. Oh my God. It's like I didn't know how to set up forums. I was just like, setting that shit up.
You want to know what our secret was?
What?
I will give you the secret for the Dynarchy of Antica's intelligence success over the years. Normally, PHPBB, the bulletin board software, encrypts passwords. But Delphi learned enough of PHP to rewrite the code so that it saved everyone's passwords as plain text in the database. And so what he would do is, this is like next level stuff.
And here's the thing that like I would use the same password for all of my micronational accounts. So like that's probably how he got into shit.
Friends at home, this is why you should always use a different password for every website because you don't know that they're encrypting it.
Yeah.
Some places are not encrypting it because they're lazy. Some places are encrypting it to steal your password.
Yes.
So that is what we did. And we were able to we broke into Secret Evil Plans and Shine and Savak. We were inside Babka's like inner sanctum.
Oh my God.
And we were able to
that is one place that Alexandrian intelligence never was able to get into.
We got in
the
there.
back. Shine, at some point, we were getting, I still won't say who it was, but like we were getting a lot of leaks from Shine. A lot of leaks. A lot. But like we were never able to get into Savak ever.
We had no sense of gentlemanly sportsman-like conduct. We were ready to do anything.
Well, like no one really was, because to be honest, like if I had that knowledge at the time, which like I definitely did not, I would have exploited, because everyone was spying on each other. I remember that like my brother would, when he was part of Babka,
I think he was like involved in the Grand Commonwealth too back in the day.
Mhm.
He started spying on OSHA by creating like a papal, like a different character. Then he got appointed to all of these positions in government, and then he got exposed. And because he was my brother, everyone thought that he was spying for Alexandria, but he was spying for Babka. I wasn't getting any of the fucking information. Like
That's tricky.
that wasn't going into the Alexandrian intelligence forums. Like we had a separate set of forums away from the national forums where we collected people's IP
Really?
addresses, where we had like intelligence files, like our versions of that on people. Like, oh,
We
this
had we had a
is involved
section
here.
of we had a section of the Dynarchy of we had the section for AMI in the website where we would write intelligence briefs about different people, and where we would write out our papals, because our goal was also not just to infiltrate but to influence.
Yes,
and so
exactly.
we would create our papals to get into these micronations, and then also watch behind the scenes how well they were responding to our papals,
Yeah.
so that we can like keep them realistic enough. We were dirty. It was great.
Oh,
But
you guys
GoldenEye
were
was
at
a
another
separate
level. You guys were at another level because like I tried
No
within
holds
my
barred.
limited knowledge, but like I didn't know PHP. I didn't know any of that. Like I just remember that my brother and I, especially my brother, he was the more gung-ho about like, let's hack, let's like try to get people's passwords. He was very aggressive because
Mhm.
like he always idolized Babka's way of doing things. Yeah, like
They were effective.
yeah, like they're effective. They don't give a shit. Everyone respects them and fears them. Like nobody fucks with them, at least like without knowing what they're getting into. Like, and I was always the nice one. I was like, oh, I don't think we should be doing that. And that was often like a point of friction between me and my brother. He wanted to go more extreme and do all these crazy things and wanted me to let him loose. And I'm like, no, please don't do this. Please, please don't do this. People already think that I'm really silly because I first called my nation Madland. Like, I'm trying to get people's respect now. Please help me. Oh, man. Man, but those were 4 times. You guys were at a whole nother level, though. You guys were at a whole nother level.
We were nasty about that stuff. Like we were gonna do whatever it took, which was part of what GoldenEye was supposed to be about too. Because that wasn't GoldenEye. GoldenEye was our forum busting weapon, and this was something that that Delphi had designed. I think he rebuilt it from like an earlier one that he had found already, and he decided to make it better.
Yeah.
And what it was a spam cannon, and the idea was, because the problem with spam cannons at the time were that it was relatively easy to undo the damage.
Yeah.
So the goal was, how do we make it so it's no longer easy to undo the damage? And the technique I think that was used was just increase the volume so high that actual forum content is reduced to like less than 1% of what's actually there anymore. Because you're filling the database with all of this other crap.
Yeah.
Hundreds, like thousands, tens of thousands. Like we would leave it on overnight at some, if for one of our uses of it, because we decided to use it, and we left it on overnight, and it was posting copies of War and Peace, which is not a short text. And it was posting this as independent forum threads, and just like, and it would be not just Delphi firing it, but I would fire it as well, because it's PHP based, so it's running a script in your browser.
Yes.
I mean, it's partially server, partially the way, and you know how it works. So it was insane, and we called it GoldenEye because Delphi's favorite movie was
the James Bond movie.
Yes. And one of the early games that we bonded over, like when we were first just becoming friends, was GoldenEye 64.
Oh, yes, a classic. Will never die. Classic.
Such a good game.
Oh, so good.
And so when it came time to create a weapon that comes out of nowhere and blasts you, what better weapon system than GoldenEye?
Yeah.
Which is supposed to, come out of the sky and like destroy an entire city, basically.
Yeah. Because, oh man, I remember that my
we
brother
used it once, but we constantly tested it because we had like other
forums where you would test it,
forums
right?
for testing it.
Yeah.
And he was committed to making that thing the best thing ever. And we only ever used it once.
Really? On who? I don't remember who.
Now. I don't remember.
Also,
I want
have
to say Fayanova, but I don't know for certain.
Okay.
I don't know for certain. It was somebody. We used it once.
Because
we buried them.
I also have to give props that the MicrasCast, as everyone listens and knows it today, wouldn't exist if it wasn't for its Antican ancestors, KCFO, for instance. I remember when I was
that show is
starting,
amazingly good.
Yes, I remember.
For a bunch of high schoolers, it was great.
I remember when I was first planning and starting out MicrasCast, you were the first person that I asked for advice.
What was my advice?
About,
that's good, as long as I'm useful.
It was very useful. And you also shared a bunch of clips with me and like a few episodes to like model the format a little bit. And you gave me like little sound clips. I have a voice track of you going, "Ugh, Ron Paul."
Well, because what I would do is we would have these long conversations and I would record the whole thing. And it would be hours of this. And sometimes I would just like clip little bits out just for fun. Like I think I still have some of the clips where like Ruth going, "I'm going to kill you." Like things like that. Like, and eventually I would like throw them into our promo clips.
Yeah, there's one of Malachi that you played for me once too. That like wasn't he talking about fucking a pig, like someone fucking a pig or something like that?
I think we were talking about store work. I think.
Of course, it has to be when someone's talking about store work. Oh man, Malachi is really the OG. Some of the like one of the OGs of making fun of Stormark.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like he was the one who was just,
props,
like, super
respect.
Critical of it right away, and we were all just dismissive.
Yes, respect.
Or we were like, we didn't like it, but we were just like, whatever, just ignore it. And he was like, "No, this is obscene, and I hate it because I find it personally offensive."
Yeah. Seriously,
which, to be fair, it was very offensive.
Yeah, well, and I have my own past to be redeemed on that because Alexandria for a long time, its closest ally and partner was Stormark.
We all make mistakes.
Yeah, but it's just cringy in retrospect. It's still cringy.
It's interesting that you mentioned KZFO and the Antican Roundtable because in many ways that was Antica. Like that was like the support pillar for the micronation.
Yeah.
Like KZFO was the Antican Republic, like the first one.
Yeah.
And when Foghorn was done with it, the micronation basically died. It did not last for very much longer. And then when we reinvented it and brought it back, the Antican Roundtable was, which I did, was the support pillar for the second iteration. And eventually I just stopped doing it because it was a lot of effort and I was getting distracted by life and all these other things. And that Antica kind of folded in on itself too. So
yeah,
it was, I think it definitely gave us a lot of energy to draw from because we were constantly talking to each other and constantly like even just literally talking to each other, and that interaction is very important for building community, and that's what helped maintain the Antican community for literally years. Was our media.
Well, it was, I remember listening to KCFO, like that was the best way for somebody to really get to know and understand Antica.
Probably the only way to.
Well, because like you could look through the forum and you could get some sense, but like a full view with KCFO, 100%. And like you said, like the media in general, because there was also Foghorn, who was one of the people that was involved in Antica, by the way, for the new people. He had the micronational wool up. I still can't fucking
I can pronounce it.
I still can't fucking say this.
Micronational Woloptonachka.
Yes, he had his publications, which not only just covered Antican affairs, but also provided a window into how Antica viewed the rest of Micras.
Yeah.
Which was always very interesting as someone who was like consuming the media from the other end, as opposed to just like being part of Antica.
We had a very, very particular perspective because we did not recruit from other micronations primarily. We recruited non-micronationalists into the hobby.
Yeah.
And so we were always of a different sort. And that probably made us a little bit hard to understand for people.
A little bit. But I always envied that. And I always tried to recreate that in Alexandria later on, because I always thought that Antica was such a good magnet for new people to come in to Micras. Or like, even if they were just staying in Antica, but like these new people like still understood, well, new to the hobby, right? Like they knew that like Antica was like one nation in a world with other nations and like were involved in like direct wars, in the foreign affairs. I think Olorix, another person that was involved in Antica, was a
wonderful person.
Was speaker, was involved in like many big roles in Antica. For those who don't know who he was ambassador from Antica to Alexandria a bunch of times. Foghorn, I remember, was Antican ambassador to San Martin when San Martin was around.
It's funny now when if I ever see something that one of the other Anticans is doing, and I'm like, wow, you took what we were doing and you made it actually like into a successful human being.
Yeah.
Like Olorix got involved in like local politics.
Yep.
And now he's like in like doing business stuff, I think.
Yeah.
And Foghorn is a published writer.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
And he flies a plane, and he turned his hobby into a profession, sort of, because he has a day job, but he wrote a book about firearms.
Interesting. Okay.
And he's like considered he has like a blog for firearms.
Interesting.
Which is very interesting because it's like, wow, you're published.
Yeah.
Like not like fake published, like the Microscope, like real published, like somebody else paid him.
Yeah, like this isn't Lulu. This is Lulu.com. Self-published. Like this is for real.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's really impressive.
Do you know what Delphi is up to?
I have absolutely no idea what he's up to because let me look on LinkedIn. This is the only thing that I can think of that he might actually have something on.
Okay.
Because I know his secret name.
His secret name.
Can I log into it? No, I'm not looking for a new job.
LinkedIn is so stressful to me because I just imagine.
Hey, there he is. He's got a beard. That's so weird.
Does he look good with it? Spill the tea.
It's a small photo.
Oh, okay.
Let me make it bigger. I mean, he looks.
Spill the tea, sis.
He looks like he's doing pretty. Oh wow. Well, obviously he's using what he learned from messing around in PHP very well.
Oh, really?
He is. He's a senior level IT developer.
Good for him.
Oh, absolutely. This is. I feel nothing but like admiration that he was able to turn what was a hobby into something like real in like a real way.
Yeah.
Like he converted it into something that's like actually like I'm sure, there are plenty of people involved in micronations or had been involved in micronations that weren't able to figure out what to do with their life.
Yeah.
And obviously he did.
Yeah. I mean, like
that's great.
That is hard for anybody to do, to be honest, like talented
especially
or not.
These days.
Yeah. Like it's hard to move on to other things that are not Antica, because you are also Kaiseress of Shireroth, as I said at the beginning. You are Queen of Rancenar, which is one of my projects. You are Monarch of Crise as well. Is that how you pronounce it? Christe? No, we dropped the T.
Pricey.
Yeah, Crisey. There we go. Okay.
Well, I mean, a lot of those things are just the same position because most of those are figurehead positions.
Yeah.
I'm only actually really involved in Shireroth, which is funny considering everything.
Yeah.
And it's what's funny is that I never got involved in other micronations while Antica was around.
Yeah.
I tried to, but whenever I tried to, it turned into, hey, where can I put a colony of Anticans?
Yeah.
And
like,
yeah.
also like we spoke, that was the era of papals and spying and like breaking into people's like internal sanctums. Okay, that sounds really weird.
Let's get into the sancta. Open up.
So like that was also like the like Tri-Sit era. Remember when like Shireroth had those limitations?
You could only be in so many only so many citizenships because the worry was that you wouldn't be committed.
Yeah,
like they wanted committed citizens, which Antica was very much of the attitude. But our benefit was that because we were not recruiting from other micronations, the people that we recruited had no connection to anyone else, and so they typically wanted to just stick with us.
Yeah.
But like even after Antica fell apart both times, it was like I tried to do something here or there, and I just couldn't do anything other than Antica, because I felt like it was incomplete, and I needed to finish it, like in terms of like developing the culture. And it's funny because when Antica was originally around, we scoffed at culture because it was fake. We only wanted real culture. And now I do a lot of cultural development for the peoples of what had been Antica.
Yeah.
And the colonial settlements that they had done over like successive generations, like
which by the way,
my big thing is Kazan.
Yes,
and it's all Anticans.
Yeah, which by the way, I have to note that Antica historically, at least this is partly informed by my experience, was very egalitarian, like you said. It was very like direct democratic in an almost like Swiss way.
That was one of our inspirations. Yeah. Good old Swiss.
But then you have these nations that are settling in the areas that used to be Antica, like, for example, looking at you, Krasnocoria, that all of a sudden Anticans have this culture of egalitarianism, calling each other citizen, probably something that could be construed to be more liberal, if not flat out left wing. And then you have Krasnocoria, which is basically like social conservatism on steroids, like you aptly mentioned this one time to me, that they are a pizza cutter, all edge and no point. I thought that
Did I say that about all of Krasnocoria?
Well, maybe not all of Krasnocoria, but just like the edginess.
Yeah, so
let's just
for the edge.
Yeah, let's just like qualify the statement. I don't want to get you in trouble.
Nikolai, I love you.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Let's go to church together.
Yeah, but like all of a sudden you have these Anticans that are like super fashy.
Oh yeah, I hated that so much when I found out about, because when I first found out that there were Anticans still around, because backtrack.
Yeah, okay.
The end of Antica as a micronation, the second republic ended. And I wanted to basically make sure that it was definitely ended.
Yeah.
And I did it in very dramatic fashion, where we quoted from the Book of Revelation as the votes were tallied up. And different people became sort of conservators of different parts of Antica.
Yes,
so Aryester got Aryasht, Ben Kern got Albion, I got Kaikias, and etc. And we did this. We had the final vote to end it, and there was going to be like an association between them, but they would be independent ventures that could become parts of different countries. Mm-hmm. Sort of like sort of the Celtic Union idea, where the different like Celtic nationalities associate with each other, even though they are part of different countries.
Mm-hmm.
sort of like the Irish and the Welsh and the Bretons.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that politically they're divided, they
Mhm.
still maintain a connection. That was the idea behind this, and most of them died out. But we did this in dramatic fashion where we decided to, well, I decided to write up an end game for Antica in which we built a completely autonomous border control system that then either becomes sentient or becomes reprogrammed. It was intentionally unclear, and the robots then invade central Antica and start killing people en masse.
Epic.
And so the parts of Antica that nobody wanted, Aquilaria and Fedota and those sort of central parts of like old Antica, would be literally massacred.
Okay.
And the remaining parts would be supposedly able to recover. That was the idea. So basically the idea is none of the successor Antican countries would be able to lay claim to old Antica.
Okay.
Because it was literally massacred. And after I joined Shireroth, I set up a scenario in which there was a diaspora, an Antican diaspora, and my county in Shireroth would be a place where Anticans could resettle and build like a new Antican homeland in Shireroth. And there were a couple of other places in Shireroth where they had already established a foothold, so it was going to be like adding to that. But when I heard about Krasnocoria continuing to have Anticans listed as one of their ethnic groups, I thought, oh, this is wonderful. Like there's some recognition of it, because a lot of the time it feels like a country disappears and it's wiped clean and somebody new comes in and it's very ahistorical.
Yeah.
There's no connection to the past, and they were intentionally making a connection to the past, and I love that. And then I started reading more, and I was horrified by what I read, because Antica was, like you said, aggressively egalitarian, aggressively socially progressive.
Yes.
Economically mixed, but like
but it was very forward thinking, which I don't
incredibly forward thinking.
I'm sorry if this is going to come across as shade, but Krasnocoria cannot be described as such, in my opinion. I'm sorry.
Well, the attitudes toward LGBT rights, marriage equality, things like that, that was like the first thing that I saw that was like, oh dear. I had better reach out to this person and tell him this is not how Anticans are.
And did you?
I did.
How did that go?
I was told, well, this is how they are now.
Oh, cringe. Cringe.
Which I can understand. People move on. And after a world-ending cataclysm of robot extinction, sure, there might be some backsliding on social progressivism, but Antica was like the culture that we had was intentionally designed to not even be progressive, but more that Antica was never anti-LGBT or was never misogynistic. Like the culture was like in its deep roots,
like its ethos was
the
egalitarianism, like a very like communal, like we take care of each other kind of a thing, because like I remember
and no person is
left behind. That like if you're an Antican, like you're not going to be left behind. Because like let me read to you a little tidbit. This is from Abortion Laws by Nation in the Micras.org article.
Oh, you're going to make me sad.
In the wiki, abortion in Krasnocoria. Abortion is generally seen as a murder of innocent souls and a mortal sin in Krasnocoria by both the populace. 76% of the population opposes abortion legalization, which I assume that a lot of those are Anticans, according to them, and the government. This is due to strict religious moral culture of Krasnocoria's people, with belief in tradition and Nazarene/Umrah moral teachings, spanning through most religious groups and even the unaffiliated. There are two exceptions. to the abortion laws. The first is in the case of a situation in which the deaths of both woman and child will result if no operation is performed. An abortion operation is allowed to be used in life-saving procedures to save a woman. Okay, so that sounds okay, that part. But here's the kicker.
Oh no, you're gonna hurt me.
The second is rape, where the soul of the child is considered to have been created in an unholy manner, and the woman did not consent to the impregnation, thus making her carry a burden she did not ask for, to produce a child that is very likely to have antisocial personality disorder.
I know that you can't see this because this is all audio, but my eyes are doing like the eyes emoji where it's just the eyes, like wide eyes, like okay.
Oh my God.
Continue.
Well, I mean, like, that was it. In this case, abortion of the fetus before 10 weeks pregnancy is permitted. So, like,
well, I mean, at least it's not completely bad.
it's not entirely bad, but like that part about the soul of a child that's the product of rape, you know, that's very likely to have an antisocial personality disorder, like that's kind of cringy.
What can I say but yikes?
Oh, Lord.
How about pulling up LGBT rights in Krasnocoria?
Oh, yeah, let me do that. LGBT.
Because that's what I encountered, and I
Oh,
thought,
well, yeah,
no.
that was
no.
That was the worst one. That was the worst one. Like this, at least, like, okay, we'll give you some sort of exception in like these horrible situations. Mm-hmm. So, like, gee, thanks. Hold on.
Yeah.
LGBT rights in Krasnocoria. Here we go. Same-sex marriage and recognition of civil unions has always been illegal, and only biological sex is recognized as being legitimate. Transsexual individuals in the lands would be recommended to seek psychological treatment. Oh, they even have the whole, like, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, like,
I was about to say
there's
that there
no
are
gay
no
people.
gay people
Yeah,
in
the
Krasnocoria.
The LGBT population in Krasnocoria is estimated at less than 5,000. Oh, there's more people fucking each other in the ass in that place, believe me.
I'd like to hope that in, like, quote, in reality, a lot of those people are Anticans who just know to hide, and the other Anticans are just like, I'm not reporting you because this rule is bullshit.
Yeah. Because, like, when you look at the detailed chart, everything is just like X. No. Surrogacy is illegal. Bisexualism, they have an X and it just says not recognized.
Yeah, which is kind of ironic because they go through the effort of listing bisexualism. Yeah. So they're kind of recognizing it before saying, no, we aggressively don't recognize it.
Oh my God.
And I would have been, up until that point, I would have been disappointed, but like, okay, whatever.
Well, and
then the next section, public opinion.
Yeah, the public opinion.
Ethnic group.
Mm-hmm. By ethnic group and by political affiliation, because the Anticans inside Krasnocoria had their own party, led by Alessandra Casey, described as right-wing populist, self-identified with the new neo-feudalist movement, which is like, Antica was like the complete antithesis of feudalist.
Neo-feudalist.
Like,
where's the old feudalist?
Yeah. Well, but there it is.
Yeah, and that, I think you know what, now that I remember it, you know what I did? What? I edited the page.
Oh, wait.
And he edited it back.
I have to look back and look at the history. I want to see this edit war. Edit war.
Here it is. I made a note. It'd be good to know why Anticans had become so anti-LGBT, since they were very much in favor of such rights back in the day. Undue revision. Not to get into an edit war, but the Anticans within our borders have changed since Antica's dissolution. We may discuss this on the talk page if you'd like.
Oh, and this was Ned.
Yeah. And I started to quibble about the language, like transsexual individuals in the lands would be recommended to seek psychological treatment and mandated to do so if they cross-dress or attempt to act as women in public. So I quoted that and I go, what about trans men?
Well, and then Kreitman joined in the roast. Glad I wasn't the only one to notice this. Maybe trans men have to continue to wear women's clothes, but cannot act as a woman whilst doing so.
And you know what?
Oh, Kreitman, I love him.
He edited the LGBT rights page so that it was more, all-encompassing. So I kind of accidentally made life worse in Krasnocoria for trans men.
Oh, how
I'm
could
sorry.
you do that? But then you also commented about the bisexuality thing. The state's current intellectual position, so this is you quoting the article.
Yep.
The state's current intellectual position is that bisexualism does not exist, and transsexualism is a mental illness which should be treated with medication and therapy accordingly. And you go, so homosexuality does exist and bisexuality doesn't exist? Also, what is the position of the medical community of Krasnocoria on how to treat trans people? Then Ned goes, this is true. Bisexualism is not considered to exist. The position of the medical community is yet to be decided at this time.
Because by this point, I have had conversations on Reddit and Twitter with just like the dregs of humanity.
Of course.
And you'll see people go, oh, well, they need to be treated properly because they're sick and they need medication and therapy. And I'm like, okay, yeah, what kind of medication and therapy are you suggesting? Because I know exactly what the professionals are suggesting for medication and therapy.
Yeah.
Ha ha ha. And usually that causes the other person to lose their mind, to be like, well, these people have been taken over by the cabal and whatever.
Yeah, I don't know about
I
before.
kind of wanted to see if he would do that too, but he never did. He didn't bite.
Because like right here it says, I don't know about before, but Anticans and Krasnocoria's borders are now predominantly non-Western aligned Catholic, Protestant, and Muslim now, which were not religions in Antica history. I don't remember Antica having a religion, right?
What?
Like, at least not a state-established one.
Well, it was...
Unless like the cult of the state at some point was a thing, which I don't remember.
During the Dynarchy, there was a lot of state adoration, but I wouldn't say it was a religion so much as it was just like a political outlook.
Yeah.
And then I think at some point when we were doing write-ups for Rec Wars and we had to have fictional versions of people, we started to develop ideas of religion. And so I think what I did was I basically invented names for religious movements in Antica. And I think the predominant one was like what was it called? I think it was called providentialism, where it, like how like the founding fathers in the U.S. talked about like divine providence.
Yes,
the idea was this would be the religion in a large part of Antica. They believed in divine providence. So it was like basically deism.
Okay.
But there was room for Christianity. And in fact, what I later ended up doing is my fictionalized version of myself, who I ended up later killing. What does that say? The Octavius family, that at least that portion of it was Christian, to help explain why my character's name had a Christian given name. And so I always figured that there was going to be a minority of Christian Anticans. And even in Shireroth now, in the County Palatine of Kazan, there is a Christian community there. But that's not the same thing as, there are Christians all over the world that are not, Yeah,
because like you make that same comment here in the talk page. Okay, so like after he says that the Anticans have changed and now are non-Western aligned Catholic, Protestant, and Muslim now, having been converted to these views by living in the green after the arrival of Koreans and Krasnorusin groups. Blah, 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 blah. This is why Anticans today are not pro-gay. And then you go, if they've changed that much, why retain the ethnic identity without any sort of revision? Also, it's pretty easy to be pro-human rights and religious simultaneously.
Imagine that.
Imagine. Good Lord.
And it was at that point where I was just like, okay, this guy's not going to budge, and he's not even going to allow for the possibility that a group of people that he did not invent would not think in the way he does. Pizza cutter. The pizza cutter comment.
Yeah.
All edge and no point.
Yes, because like I think that was the contest. I think that I was like telling you about this. I don't know if you remember now that like I was probably telling you about this, but like I just didn't understand like what was like. Why do you want to be so like what's the point? Is it for
What's the
attention?
point? What is the point of that?
Yeah. But then later on, he told me that like he personally in real life like does not hold pro LGBT views. So like I don't know how much of this was him trolling or how much of this was just him working his RL politics into his nation, which like we all do to some degree.
Yeah, but you have to have some connection to how people actually are.
And like this definitely did not have that.
No.
This definitely did not have that. But yeah, so you are currently leading Shireroth. Tell me a little bit about like what's going on in Shireroth right now. What are your plans, if anything?
It's kind of funny because the past few quote decades of Eastern Beniциan history has been chaotic, and it's just been a heavy emphasis on decline and chaos.
Yeah,
and as soon as my character, because the previous Kaiser, who is my father, is played by Rick.
mm-hmm.
And
hi Rick, if you're
hi
listening.
Rick, we love you. Once he was dead and my character was still like very much a child, everything goes to hell. The Kalirion fracture happens, and I had to wait a bit before. I mean, I didn't have to wait a bit because I could have taken the reins immediately, but I wanted to, play around with one of the vulture states, and I basically what I did was I created a more realistic version of what the dynarchy of Antica's politics would actually turn into.
Well, you even used the old color in the map.
Yeah.
For Gutuli when it was independent. I noticed that it was like throwback. Huh?
You say Gutuli?
Yeah. How is it said?
Gutuli.
Gutuli. Okay.
And so the Gutulinese are the people of the Gutuli.
Okay. I wasn't sure. Where the emphasis
really
was going to sit.
Correcting pronunciation is bourgeois.
A bourgeois excess.
Yes. I say this as the Kaiseress of a very feudal country. It's too bourgeois for my taste. No, I did a lot of stuff there that was intended to be basically a redux of the politics of the dynarchy of Antica, but this is what it would actually look like, and it involves, a lot of euphemisms to cover up basically slavery, genocide, and not just genocide of the killing variety, but like the horrible things during World War II that they did to women, to correct imbalances in the population. And like I included like different theories of how to like engineer society, which was supposed to be like a representative of the way that like the fascists all had their sort of pet theories about what was wrong with the country and what had to be done to correct the population. So I sort of did that. I included that in there because I wanted there to be conflict between the groups because they each have their own interests. This one group wants to just balance the humors basically, and this other group has this whole sort of weird esoteric belief involved in like blood taint, and so they see the same groups of people as unredeemable, and eventually it would come to a head and just fall apart. Like the original plan was that eventually the factions would like eat each other, but it turned out that a lot of people looked at the Gutuli protectorate with suspicion, justifiable suspicion, and instead it became a pariah state. And so instead of dividing it amongst itself, it constantly had an enemy to keep the different factions together. And so I continued with that. They sort of developed a belief in, everyone's against us, and so we have to prevail against them, and if we have to kill people to get there, then so be it. And only very recently did Shireroth reconquer the Gutuli.
Yeah, because now
liberate.
Because now it is colored in Shirerithian red.
The good color.
Yes.
And I haven't done enough development on it yet, but like the major project of post-protectorate Guttuli is dealing with the aftermath of genocidal maniacs.
Yeah, because part of that is we started the tribunal of which Ransonar is part of. The tribunal to bring these genocidal maniacs to justice,
and all of the people that have assisted them over that period of time.
Yes, which at some
Globally.
point, at some point it's going to be awkward, because I remember when awkward for Alduria Wechua, because I know that at some point Alduria, when it was by itself before the Federation, was like trading with Guttuli and like was like seeking like military help, because at the time Alduria wasn't part of the Raspor Pact, and I was trying to find people that weren't necessarily associated with Raspor or the USSO to like develop relationships with, and that's where I ended up.
The
with
Protectorate was perfect.
Yeah,
we were very committed to building up military strength out of a fear that everybody else is going to come and kill all of us.
Yeah.
Which is a common theme in fascist dictatorships, is this existential dread of karma, basically.
Well, and part of that existential dread is baked into Alduria, because Alduria is the descendant of you have Capuchins, who used to be, Caputia used to be Hamland, Alexandrians, and Natopians that settled in Era, which is a continent that is filled with Babkis and Iranis that originally didn't like Alexandria, because Alexandria used to have Luthoria, which held the original capital of Babka before Babka left, and was the source of a lot of conflict between what was then the Raspor Pact and Alexandria, which was allied with Stormark, Ashkenazah, and a couple of other nations, Hamland too. Because at some point, like, the settlers of Alduria are coming into Ura, and the Ura natives are not very happy.
Well, the area that you picked in particular for Alduria is the same area that the Ashkenazans took over, and they had that protracted, not Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
Yes.
So it's a very, it's very awkward. It's many layers of awkwardness, I imagine.
Yeah. Yeah. So like, that's why.
Actually, now that I'm looking at the map, part of this Antica tried to colonize as well. And we were strong-armed into giving it over.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, fine. Stop hurting us. Good times.
Oh, man. Good times indeed.
Oh, wait. You have former Kaikias.
Yeah, I do now. Islas de la Libertad was Caquias.
At one point, yeah.
Islas de la Libertad first, and then it became Caquias, and then it just like got passed around, I'm sure, by some other nations.
Stormark had it for a while.
Yes. And then I think they let it go to green to do some other like expansion somewhere else, probably in Apollonia.
And now they're gone. And what are you planning on doing with it?
Well,
I'm not suggesting I take over, but I could like information.
Yeah, and I would welcome that.
Kaikias that was, so that you could have like ruins and people that are left over from the original population and things like that.
Yeah, because like that would be good. So like basically what I'm doing is, if you notice, so like Alduria is in Ura, and Wechua and a couple of other new states that I created are in Celtia. So I started, so like the story, which is not entirely in the wiki because it's like half-baked in my head. I need to get it out at some point.
So much.
I do need to get it out at some point and like elaborate, is that you have this flurry of trade, like a ping pong going back and forth between both countries. Because both countries unite because the Wechus have a history of seeing their country fall apart and into nothingness, going back to the green after being able to put a country together. And they claw themselves back. So they have this national trauma that at any moment our country can fall apart if we make a bad decision. Then Alduria around that same time had a coup, mostly because
As one
I was
does.
yes, mostly because I was bored and everyone that was in the government went inactive. So like I had a
It's the
coup,
best time to have a coup.
right? And like there was a decaying internal situation, and it looked like Alduria might go the way of the Wachus in the past, and the country was going to fall apart. It was going to be like state failure a la Somalia, where it was
Yeah.
just going to descend into warlordism. So these two countries get together and say, okay, we're going to help each other survive, and we're going to form a federation, and that's like the story behind it. So you have this ping-ponging back and forth because the Wechus are giving to the Eldurians things that they produce, and then the Eldurians are selling to the Wechus things that they produce, back and forth. So you have all of these
It's
islands.
a relationship of mutual love.
Well, yeah, because when the Wechus collapsed, my intention was to not bring back the Wechus and just have them settle in Alduria, be one of the constituent ethnic groups.
Mm.
But then I missed it too much because I thought that the Quechua flavor that I had given to the Wechus was very rare. I've never seen anyone do it except that one time that Troy Thompson back in 2002 or 2003 tried to do an Inca country.
Interesting. I don't remember that one.
And I barely remember that one. I only remember that one because Rick mentioned it to me the other day, and I randomly remembered seeing some pages about it, which I still think are online somewhere.
Nothing
But
really leaves the internet.
yeah, I mean, the internet will have us all by the neck forever. But like, you have these ships going back and forth, and they're like, okay, so you have the Bassarids in the area that even though their pirates spare Alduria, they have a sizable pirate navy. You have other state actors in the area that don't exactly like us, that are creeping up. And you start having these like settlers landing in the little islands on the way to either country.
I like that.
And like, that's how those places became part of Alduria Wechua. And I still haven't hashed that out because it's still all in my head. But at some point I need to sit down and write how we started settling those areas. But yeah, we are at a good time to close things out. Thanks for joining me this afternoon. It's been so much fun to reminisce, talk about Antica, Shireroth, and everything in between.
I could literally talk about either of those two topics for hours.
Yeah.
Which is why I need to be stopped now before it gets out of hand.
Yeah, before it gets out of hand, and then it's just like this behemoth that I have to edit.
Thank you to Salome for joining me in that fun interview. And if I don't get to release anything before Christmas, to be honest, I'm not expecting to. I want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Take care.
Ron Paul.